Are you going to be sitting or standing, Bobby?
Whoa! This is your worst nightmare. A gala that fails. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. Well, that's enough.
It's okay, my friends. It's okay. I'm here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nightmare on Gala Street webinar. It's so good to see so many of you out there today. I love Halloween. I don't know if I've ever told you this or not, but I love Halloween because it is my birthday. Yes, tomorrow is my birthday, and I've always loved Halloween as a kid, and it's always fun. Everybody gets spooky, everybody gets scary, and we thought this would be a good opportunity to do a webinar and talk about all of the nightmares that could happen. So I see our friends that are joined us. We're going to get started here in just a minute, let everybody else kind of log on. But if you could do me a favor in the chat, just give me a little, hey, how's it going? And then put in your worst gala nightmare. I want to see what that is. We've got a few. I've kind of polled my clients over the years and asked them what their biggest nightmare could be, and we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But yeah, it's scary. Putting on galas and putting on events, that's scary, and you want them to always go well. You want them to just be perfect, and I hate to break this to you, but there's no perfect gala. Never. From the front side, we can make it look perfect. We can make it look smooth. We can make it look just absolutely amazing and inspiring and motivating, engaging, and all of that. And then on the backside, it could be a total shit show. And you know what I'm talking about, my friends. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But again, it's the gala is the front side is the duck sitting on the water. It's like, oh yay! And then on the underneath, they're kicking like hell to stay afloat. And a lot of times, working with some of our clients, it is like that. Whether it's their first gala or their 50th gala, there's going to be things that go wrong, and it's okay. And things are going to go wrong, and things are going to be challenges, and that's why galas are so fun. But it happens, and we want to try to figure out how to mitigate or prevent those nightmares from happening. But when the nightmare happens, how do you manage it? You can prepare for the best and expect the worst, and then if the worst does happen, now what? And we've been through many situations of galas that just didn't work out as well as they could. I'm just typing in the chat here. Gala nightmares. All right. So we'll wait for some responses that are coming in there. We've got a couple friends that have joined us. We have a couple more. We're going to kick off here in just 1 minute. I have a special guest joining me today, and who actually just experienced a gala nightmare. Some of the biggest fears that I do get from our clients, like what's the worst thing that could happen? And one of the worst things that could happen, and very well has happened to you, or maybe have been at events where you've seen this, the crickets. Everybody is scared of the crickets that are in the room. What if nobody raises their paddle? What if nobody bids? That could happen. But yes, that is one of the biggest nightmares. Oh my gosh, we have a couple more friends that have joined us. Thanks for popping in. If you could, and you're just joining us, put in some of your gala nightmares that are there, and let us see if we can answer your questions today. So now I do have a very, very special guest. I do want to welcome here. Like I said, you've got crickets, you've got drunk people, that happens. Nobody gives. Maybe the power goes out, or it just don't work. It sounds bad. People have a bad time. Maybe there's somebody that's in the audience just takes over the show, and it does happen. But one of the worst things that could ever happen happened, and it happened last week. And we're not telling this story to pick on anybody. We're not telling this story to scare anybody. We're just sharing the story because this is an experience. This happened. And then now, being a Monday morning quarterback, we get to look back and see, okay, if this had ever happened again, this is what we're going to do. And we've got some great ways to do that, and we would hate for it to happen, but things do happen. So now we have some options to be able to prepare for the best, expect the worst, because one of the worst things did happen. Oh my gosh, our celebrity didn't want to take more than 4 pictures with the board speakers and sponsors. Celebrity prima donnas. Yeah, that happens, Jacqueline. And but if that's your worst nightmare, hey, that's okay. They ain't coming back next year. So thanks for popping in on that. So, all right, without further ado, I am going to bring in my guest, the only one of our newest auctioneers here with Call to Auction, the how would we say, the country singing auctioneer, but he's also, I'll let him introduce himself. All right, here he is, the one and the only Dusty Klink. All right, Dusty's coming in. Hey, Dusty.
Hey, how are you, Bobby? Boy, that was a scary intro. I was a little frightened there.
So Dusty, I kind of pre-teased this. I had a purse catch on fire because of tea lights. We've had fires too. Yeah, that does happen. Yes. Quick, sound the alarm. So
Yeah.
Dusty, I kind of teased this worst nightmare that had ever happened, and you got to experience it in person last Saturday night. What happened?
Yeah, that was a little rough. So to set the stage, everything was going great. About 20 minutes left in the program, and it was beautiful, but it was all outside. It was gorgeous. The temperature was dropping a little bit, maybe not enough heaters, so people were a little. And then all of a sudden, during one of the speakers before right before we're going to do the paddles, we had a person experience a medical issue, and then was the show, of course, and then the decision was made by the development team that we had to stop the rest of the fundraising for the evening. So that was definitely a nightmare situation. And of course, there's a lot of different ways to handle that type of situation, but most importantly, doing what you think is best at the time, being able to facilitate that, being able to communicate that to the audience, making sure that the emergency personnel can make their way in and out easily and take care of the situation at hand. And whether or not you decide to continue with the program or not is, of course, up to you. But unfortunately, that's not a great situation to have.
Yeah, that when you called me that night and you're like, well, Bobby, it happened. I'm like, what? And you're like, yeah, there was a medical emergency and we decided not to do the paddle raise. It sounded like the live auction was great, right?
The live auction went amazing. It was great. Everybody was hyped up. They were having so much fun. And then all of a sudden, we get done with the live auction, speakers coming up right before that paddle raise, and then boom, that situation happened. So, and that was a and of course we didn't, right at first you don't really exactly know what's going on 100%. So you have to kind of start putting some pieces together, and we did, and it was to the direction of everyone that it was definitely the best way to go, was to pause everything and then continue the fundraising at a different moment in time.
Yeah. So now what is the organization going to do? I mean, miss the paddle raise. It was probably going to be, it was going to be the biggest revenue generator of the evening. We were working with this clients many months leading up into the point. I mean, they were following all the best practices. It was set up for a success. And then call the ambulance. And what happened. And it's unfortunate, but it happened. And now what are some of the options that you think the client's going to have to take from this point?
Yeah. So the unfortunate part is, since it was like such a small amount of the program left too, that was, it was definitely towards the latter part of the evening. And I know that, you mentioned quite a little bit is, hey, get your fundraising done first and then party. This wasn't a party type of situation, but I know that and thinking back, I was like, oh, that is another reason, right? Because things happen and stuff happens, and you never know. This program wouldn't have worked out, particularly that way. But it was one of those things that now what they're doing is taking the opportunity to reach out to all those people that were there, thanking them. Of course, that's a huge thing anyway, is just thanking everybody for coming, but then also mentioning that they did not have the opportunity to, finish their fundraising for the evening. And they also, have the opportunity now to make essentially that ask in a digital realm, or, or maybe even picking up the phone, they can do that too. But there's a lot of different ways that they can do that. But I think at the time it was the best call for the situation.
Yeah, you have to make that decision and follow through with it. And the client, it'd be interesting to see what the results are here, now a week out, and then in a couple of weeks to see what their, fundraising beyond the event really was. And it might be an opportunity to develop some relationships and have some conversations that they probably wouldn't have had. But it is also that chance to tell the story and show the need. This is that call for support, but like, look, this was a chance that a group was able to come together and everybody was going to raise their paddles, and it didn't happen. And, kind of give an update on the individual. I hope they're okay. And then just, making that ask that, let's give, and then saying thank you and continuing that conversation beyond that. Because ultimately, yes, you're going to raise a lot of money at your event, and we all want to have record-breaking events and have $1 million events. But at the end of the day, it's where the fundraising begins, the day after the event. So it's how they manage this, how they mitigate this, and how they steward those guests and those donors to be able to give. And, we might have good news here at the end of the year that, they had a huge influx of year-end giving and essentially, broke records and then raised more money than they did last year. And that's really the whole goal, of this, creating as best of experience as you can. Get those people out of there. It's cold, and get them home and happy, and then do that follow up process. So Dusty, bummer that happened. And being a newer auctioneer in the business, I did have some advice for you. Like, it will happen, and it's happened to me twice. And in 20 years to have that only happen to me twice, you just have to roll with it, measure a lot of things, but then make that decision. Don't second guess that decision, and then follow through with that. And then at the end of it, you kind of got to do a little bit of a little cleanup. So what, as they say, shit happens. And that's the joy of galas that are out there. So our friend Jacqueline, mentioned that, the fire has happened. That has happened. The fire alarm has happened. The electricity has gone out, and and even just right here on this wonderfully produced webinar, our Wi-Fi is not working on Dusty's end. And that happens. It really does happen. And yes, you do prepare for these opportunities. So in a perfect example here, like Wi-Fi, if someone's giving, or, they're doing the bidding or the giving through the Wi-Fi, Dusty, what are some ways that we could mitigate that technological, how you say, our proverbial problems that are in the sky? Murphy's going to show up anyway, and then he shows up and by like totally shutting down your Wi-Fi.
Oh man, right? I mean, so obviously, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can go to mitigate that. The Wi-Fi issue, if you're going on the the giving platforms that way, that's a boy. For me on the webinar, how do I fix my Wi-Fi? I thought I was doing pretty good until until we got connected.
Yeah, it does happen. But one solution that could happen is there are some external Wi-Fi solutions that are out there. There's this guy that I met in New York City. He's got this box. He brings it to the event, and then you have your own dedicated Wi-Fi. Now with the new Starlink that's out there, I mean, to rent a Starlink from someone, it can't be that much. And then now you have a dedicated internet lines, for that to happen. There have been times that technology platforms have just not worked. Like there's been a glitch, like a nationwide glitch, and it just ain't working. Like, what do we do? So this is where we get to follow a best practice. And one of the keys to our success is right here. This thing, the wonderful paddle. Now, if everybody has a paddle and we know I know that's backwards. We know who's attached to this paddle. Then if we got to go to paper bid sheets on the silent auction, you can put down paddle number. Kind of old school way to do it. Auctions, definitely auction, you don't need Wi-Fi for an auction. You just need a really good auctioneer, somebody that knows what they're doing to get the auction going and, get people bidding in there. You got to have great live auctions out of them. But then when you get to that live ask or the big ask, you've got to have your paddle in those hands and know who these paddles are attached to, because even if your internet system, your tech system, your solution, whatever goes down, you still have your analog giving method. And I prefer paddles over technology just because they are very tactile. And I always say, more paddles up means more paddles up. And when people are giving on their phones, it gives people a chance to leave the room. I don't like that. I want people to stay in their headspace. I like to say they want them to stay in their heart space right after we tell that story or that testimonial, that survivor story, mission speaking, whatever it is. You gotta, this gives people a reason to go out. Like, I mean, Dusty, when someone hops on their phone, what are some things that they're going to be looking at? Like you're looking at something right now.
Boy, yeah. Well, I was writing down a question here. And what you do is you do exit that room, right? And you let those interruptions come in, like, maybe you get a text message from somebody else, maybe you get an email from work, or maybe you get something that goes on, and then boom, all of a sudden you're out of the heart space. And you're into that, I got to respond to this, I got to do this, I got to do that. And, you start losing that emotional appeal that's so necessary in that giving moment.
Right. And again, by being able to plan for that and prep for that, I mean, we highly encourage. I mean, I almost won't do an event with a client if they're not using paddles. There's some very specific situations in which we won't use a paddle, but everybody has to have a paddle, even if they're not connected to anybody. Everybody has to have a paddle because there's something, about this. So let's move into the next. You have a question. There's a question.
Yeah. Okay. Question. Okay. So this was not our event. But I heard a member talking about this. So this was a member of the board talking about this at an event that they went to. And so what ended up happening with the paddles, which was interesting, but the paddles, they started giving out paddles that were actually assigned to other people. So then nobody wanted to give. Like nobody wanted to use their numbers. Nobody wanted to do anything. It was like, they said that once it started to get around, and I don't know how they figured it out, but once it started to get around, everybody was like, not using paddles, not doing anything. So yeah, you're right. Register to the right person is key.
One solution that I have seen happen, this actually happened with my lovely wife, Erin, and very similar. Paddles went out, wrong names, wrong tables, everything was wrong. So then at the end of the night, what they did is like, we love all of our donors. We want all of our donors that raise their paddle in the paddle raise. Bring your paddle. We want to take a photo in front of the stage of everybody that made a donation. So then what ends up happening is everybody holds up their paddle next to their face and they're like, boom. Okay. When you called 371, that's Bobby D. He gave $1,000, and then at least that's an opportunity to find the face, find the name, follow that up. I like to make the suggestion of having paddle numbers assigned to tables, like a section of paddle numbers. So like table number 1 has 100 through 109. Table number 2 has 110 to 119, table number 3, and so on and so forth, so that we know when that paddle goes up, at least we know which table they're at, and then we can then follow up with that. Another way that we help our clients is we always audio and video record every one of our events as well too. Dusty's got this awesome 360 camera that he uses, and now able to put that in the room and see all of the activity that is happening. And when someone raises their paddle at 5,000, we know what table it came from. We know, sometimes can see and zoom in and see who that individual was. So these are some ways that you could, lessen the impact of the paddle problem. All right. So now moving on to the next one, we have crickets in the room. The lovely. All right, friends, now's that time to give. Who could give $1 million? And then there's everybody that's like in the audience and they've got this, they're like in the space. I like to call it the golden goosebump moment. They're ready to give. And all of a sudden it's like, who's going to be the first giver? And nobody wants to be the first. It's just the way it is. Nobody wants to be the first giver. Nobody wants to be the first donor at the event. So you have to do what I call kill the crickets. Dusty, what are some ways that we can kill those crickets in the room?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways is pre-secured.
Absolutely.
So
for those that give us what is that pre-secured gift? What is that?
Well, you go out to your donors before the event and you say, hey, we're going to be doing a paddle raise, and we have these levels of giving. Can I interest you in raising your paddle at a certain level? And that is the easiest way to do that. To really just invite the people that have the ability or maybe have given before, and ask them to raise their paddle at the night of the event. That's one way.
And that's one way to be able to mitigate those, having that pre-secured gift. But another way to do it is really like do a audience survey, like look at your donor list. Like if again, going back to the paddles, making sure that who is in the room, you can go through and identify, okay, who's coming, who was at last year's event and raised their paddle? Are they coming this year? Board members, who are they bringing? Are those board members going to be raising their paddle? This is number one rule. Well, not one of the rules. Every board member has to give. So that's one way that you can kill the crickets as well too, is making sure that your board members are going to be able to give. So pre-secured gifts, making sure your board's giving, looking at the population that's in the room and capacity of that population to be able to give. And you can't start too high, but you can also start too low. But finding that space where you could get that reasonable lead gift. Now there's some private schools that we work with, and smaller capacity or smaller opportunity to be able to raise money. Like a $25,000 gift is completely unheard of. But a $5,000 gift, there are some that can help to, make that gift as well. So it's identifying, there's sometimes in the rooms where, those individuals are, what is their giving history, with your organization, but also what is their giving history at other organizations? And then all of a sudden it was like, how do you do that? That's kind of creepy. Well, there's some well screening that's out there, and there's some other organizations that have a much higher development budget, and they're able to utilize some of these technologies that are out there for well screening, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, if you're playing in that realm, you can do some things to really set yourself up for success to kill those crickets that are in the room. So pre-secured gifts, getting your board to give, doing that survey of your audience, and then also starting at that appropriate level. And the best way to figure out what that appropriate level is, also working with your fundraising consultant, your auctioneer, someone that has experience in that realm to be able to suggest what that high level is. Now, there's lots of events where we will host and we'll say, all right, friends, we're going to start right now at the $10,000 level. I want to see if there's anybody that wants to give at a higher level, wants to give it a level, to be our first star tonight, or blah, 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 whatever you want to call it. And sometimes that does happen. There's sometimes people in the room that are feeling very generous and they say, all right, you know what? We're going to start at 10 grand, but I came prepared to give a $25,000 gift. And you have to create that environment. You have to create that experience or that space where organic gifts like that can come out. Now, we're not having a conversation, or no, we're not presenting to an audience when we're fundraising. We're having a conversation with that audience. We're creating an inclusive, participatory environment and experience for those that are in the audience to really dictate what the result of this event is going to be, and really showcase, like, look, here's this opportunity for you to be involved. And if there's someone in the audience that feels like making that gift and feels like making that contribution, and they want to give it a higher level, let's give them that opportunity. There has been one time where we've asked for $1 million gift, and sometimes it's that gets that chuckle in the room. It's like, ha, ha, ha. But guess what? It actually happened. There was a lady that whose mother had passed previously in the year, and then she had a trust, and there was some philanthropic dollars that were in there, and she wanted to make $1 million gift. And that was the time she wanted to do it. And it really got the audience excited. They were like, ah! And I mean, getting a gift too high sometimes can scare people, because all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, they have enough money. We don't have to keep raising money. So the way that we solved that is we definitely celebrated the $1 million gift. And then we asked the individual, like, well, with your gift, do you think we should stop fundraising? I mean, do we have enough fundraising? And it was the best line. The donor was like, no, we have to solve this. We have to fulfill this mission. Let's keep going. And then from that $1 million gift, we ended up raising another $250,000. But that really, really helped us to get that ball rolling, killing the crickets, breaking the ice, building that momentum, and, and moving, that fundraising process along. So now, Dusty, I know you're pretty well versed in this. The nightmare of how can I say this the most sensitive way? The sound sucks. How can we fix that? And it does happen, and that is a nightmare that I hear from some clients. And when I am kind of interviewing them and finding out areas of success from them, I ask them, I was like, okay, who brought the sound in? So what are some ways that our friends watching can solve that nightmare?
Well, I think number one way is to hire a professional. That's just number one. And somebody that does this, somebody that knows what is going on. That is like the key. Knows the room. You'd have to know the room. If it's outside, if it's inside, there's so many variables that come into live audio production. And I was in a band for years, and so I have played all different kinds of venues and all different kinds of things with all different kinds of sound systems, and sometimes, the audio does suck. And even if you hire a professional, sometimes, something will happen. Let's say, for instance, like your mic is cutting in and out, right? What do you do then? Always have a backup mic. I mean, I say, it's like, it's the thing that, or have a hardwired mic, ready to go. And there's so many ways that you can change the potential for problems by just being a little bit more prepared, and having that professional audio crew there that knows what to do on the spot. That is going to help out the most. And even though there is an expense associated with it, and sometimes a lofty expense, really, I mean, when you're considering budgets, AV can be a large portion or a larger portion of your budget. But think about this. That is pretty much what people are there for. The audio, the video, they're not going to give if they can't hear what the giving level is at or what that item is going for. I always think this about audio. audio is one of those things that no one's ever going to congratulate you at the end of the night for the amazing audio that you had, right? They're never going to come up and say, wow, that was great. You know, I know you spent extra money on audio. That was amazing. But if it's bad, that's where they come up and you're probably going to hear about it.
Yeah, you're literally going to hear about it. And again, we're all about creating that inclusive, enjoyable environment, because when people are comfortable, when people are in a space that is enjoyable, they're more likely to react to the messages that we're receiving. But if they're not receiving the messages, number one, they're going to tune out. I mean, even in this day and age, I mean, the attention span of grown-ass adults has shrunk so much. And that, if that bad sound is coming across, they're going to tune out. They're going to be like, no, this is not worth my time. I mean, when someone attends your gala, it is the biggest investment of their most valuable asset that they ever could do, is giving you their time and their attention. And yes, we definitely want their treasure that's going to come from that. But then there's that feeling of like, you guys are wasting my time, and I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm going to tune out. I actually had a conversation with a major donor who's kind of the chronic gala attendee and gives at every event. Love seeing him in the audience. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, we're going to at least get, a 4-digit, maybe a 5-digit gift from them, because, they're very generous. And I asked him, like, what's something that could happen that you've seen, in this gala setting that is a nightmare? And he's like, well, bad sound, cringe program, a bad auctioneer, like, he's like, when he is a table host or he's even at a table, he says, when that happens, then the donors and the guests kind of turn to themselves and they're like, well, this is our party now. They're not making it interesting and entertaining and inspiring for us. We're going to create our own party at the table and kind of take over this gala. And that's what they do. They tune out, they get loud, they get rowdy. Sometimes they drink a little bit more than they should have. And they do take over. I hear this all the time from potential clients, and they're like, yeah, nobody paid attention. Then that's the question. Okay, well, did you have professional AV? Number one. Number two, who did your fundraising? Were they captivating? Were they engaging? Were they inspiring? Were they motivating on stage? And then number three, like, how long was your program? Like, if it was 3 hours, nobody gonna pay attention to that. So we talk about these different things, and then kind of the run of the show, and and all of that. But brings back to plan for success, and then you can plan to have great results, and you can have more of a dream gala instead of a nightmare gala, and that right there, easy fix. Yes, dollars invested, but again, that ROI on making sure that you're creating that very comfortable and inclusive environment of everybody that's there. And you have to, again, live fundraising sound, live auction paddle race sound is a lot different than just like wedding sound. A lot of times you'll have weddings or wedding DJs that will be like, yeah, I'll come and do the gala, sure, I'll bring the AV. And then they come in with these 2 giant speakers and they put them up in front, and then it blasts the front audience members, and their faces are melting. It's like, it's too loud. And then they run out and get out of the back, or they leave because it's, again, uncomfortable. And then you have those in the back that can't hear anything. And then they, again, check out and can take over your event. So if I ever hear that happening, I'm like, let me talk to the DJ. We need some more sound support. It's probably going to cost more money, but it's going to be worth it to create kind of that surround sound atmosphere. We've got a blog that's coming up here in just a little bit that's going to talk about the ideal audio setup. I was just at an event, and the audio team got it. They got it, and they made it sound crystal clear. They made it comfortable. Everybody in the room could hear it and feel it. And then from that, we had a record-breaking night. So their nightmare solved. Wake up, you're happy. Your event can be amazing, and you can fix that. So then the next nightmare that happens, we have this great live auction. You've got great sound. You've got a great auctioneer, but then you've got really crappy items. Like just horrible. Like when you ask for the bids, okay, who gives $1,000? Really? Nobody? So Dusty, what are some ways that we can solve that nightmare of having not having the wrong items and making sure that you do have the right items in your live auction?
Sure. A couple of ways is, I mean, some great pre-planning, right? I mean, really finding out, looking at your past and seeing, okay, what was effective, what was not effective, and then building off of that. Another good way is going to your board and saying, hey, what items would be interesting to you? What items do you think would be, a great addition to this program? Another one I think that is great is anything that is not purchasable anywhere else, right?
Get on Amazon.
Right. And then of course, you can work with consignment organizations that we work with. We have a number of vendors that in order to provide trips and different experiences and all different kinds of stuff like that would fit whatever event that you're doing. Those are a couple of options. Yeah.
Yeah. And identifying these items, I always like to, coach clients into identifying what we call unobtainium. Like you could never buy it anywhere else. Like what are these experiences that they're only going to find at your auction? Like that's number one. Number two, again, love the consignment options, but then also polling your live auction bidders and finding out, where do you want to go this year? Like, what do you want to experience? Where do you want to see? Because most every philanthropist that's going to be in that room does have some semblance of a travel budget, and we all have this bucket list. Some people want to go to Tuscany, some people want to go to Belize, some people want to go to Alaska and see the Northern Lights, and there are vendor partners that we work with that do have these opportunities. So talking with them and be like, look, maybe we can kill two birds with one stone. You get to travel where you want to go, and then us, the nonprofit, can benefit and really kind of tap into their travel budget at the same time of tapping into their philanthropic budget. And then there is that much bigger development opportunity that comes from the experience where one of your major donors spent a lot of money in the live auction and they're going to go on this experience. They better have a good experience, because now your reputation's on the line. So if they go and they purchase, a fully donated item from someone that says they have this beautiful house in Hawaii, and it's this tiny little condo that doesn't even face the ocean, that's 3 miles inland, that's a pain in the ass to park, all of these things, it's not going to give a good experience to your the purchase of your live auction item. So that's where the partners that we choose to work with and the vendors that we work with, it's white glove concierge service all the way, because they also understand that it's that experience that then ties into your brand, ties into your reputation, and also ties into that stewardship process, to where now your donors are going to have a much better experience. Cody, thank you, my friend. Love you. Now, if you're in Central and Northern California, my buddy Cody Dawson is on here. Great auctioneer, and is always putting out great content. So Cody, thank you so much for joining us here. And he speaks the same language that we do. He's drinking the same Kool-Aid. So I hope that that you are as well. And then let's say that you've never had a live auction and you don't even know where to start. So some of the best auction items to really bring in that we're seeing the most successful are food and drink related items, like locally sourced experiences with a chef, with a sommelier. Maybe there's a bourbon tasting or a tequila tasting or a pizza and beer tasting. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that you could create that with some of your local restaurateurs and have that as one of your live auction items. Another live auction item that I love to see at events. Dusty, you actually sold one a couple weeks ago at that golf tournament. Do you remember that thing filled with those things?
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, so a Yeti cooler filled full of different booze. I mean, and it's like top shelf stuff, really cool stuff. And then they had another one, the sponsor happened to be a vodka company, and they just loaded this cooler up with all different kinds of, and I mean, it was an impressive amount of vodka. I mean, very impressive.
True. And that cooler of beverages, adult beverages, always sells well. I mean, you could have your board members, your committee members, bring in their favorite bottle. Everybody could bring in their favorite beer, their favorite wine, whatever. You could talk to your local hardware store. Now there's an Ace hardware store in almost every community. I love Ace hardware, and community centric that they are. And a lot of times you could approach them and be like, look, we want to feature and showcase your business in our live auction. And would you be willing to consider to donate a Yeti cooler? And a lot of times they're like, oh, you're going to put our name on that and we're going to be in the auction? Sure. Yeah, here you go. And, here's a $200 cooler. And then we fill it up, we sell it, thousands of dollars for this. And that's another low hanging fruit that you could have in it. The other night I hosted an event where they were doing their first live auction ever. This is their first gala ever. And they created something so unique, and it was called the Money Tree. And maybe we've seen this, maybe we've not, but it was like a Christmas tree, and here Christmas is coming up. And what they did is they attached these little like ornaments that had $20 in them, $100 in them. People just donated some cash and they filled these ornaments up with that cash. But then they also started clipping lottery tickets to the tree. And, I don't know how much the tree was worth. I mean, if you were to total up all the lottery tickets potential that they could win, it could be tens of thousands of dollars that they could win from this. But it does show that there's a way to create something out of nothing. And by, doing the Money Tree, by doing the cooler of beverages is a great way that you can create some live auction items. And then also looking within your board, your committee, your major donors, or even in that network of identifying some interesting individuals that might have a really cool job. And if they have a really cool job, sometimes you could sell an internship for maybe a student, maybe a young person to be able to go and experience a day at Amazon, a day at Google, to be, what does it mean to be a stockbroker? What does it mean to be a race car driver? Something like that. And again, here's that unobtainium. You couldn't find it anywhere else because it's that access to this opportunity they wouldn't find anywhere else. So, live auction items, you can do it. You got to find the right people to work with and really brainstorm the right ideas. You know what? We've got a resource that where we can send out, and I think we'll send that out with the follow-up email here, is some great live auction item ideas. And many times you can take that resource and pass it out to your board and your committee, and sometimes that gets their brains going, and they start brainstorming. They start thinking like, oh, I know this person, because they always say it's 7 degrees to Kevin Bacon, because yeah, you could have Kevin Bacon be at your event. And I love Kevin Bacon. He's awesome. He just had that TikTok where he danced to the mailbox to vote. Speaking of which, I got to put a plug in. Vote like your life depends on it. So speaking of nightmares, anyways, moving on. So this is one of my favorite. No, it's not. It's one of the most common nightmares that I ever see. And it's the drunk individual in the room that decides to take the spotlight. Dusty, have you ever experienced that?
A number of times.
What do you do?
Oh boy. It's hard to mitigate that one, right? I mean, because they definitely want the attention, right? And sometimes it's just going up and talking to them. They want a little bit of attention. I've done that. I've gone up and I said, hey, thank you so much for coming, blah, blah, blah. And, just kind of mitigate that kind of situation a little bit. And say, hey, I am gonna, get up here and do this. And so just kind of trying to level with them a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's been my most success. I don't know what your most success has been.
Then that's great. Give them the attention that they're looking for. Many times, you could, have a board member or something kind of put the arm around them. It's like, hey, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you're having a good time. Let's go out into the lobby and I want to get you another drink. Get them out of the room. That's one way that you could have that happen. There has been times where we've had a well-meaning donor that has many beverages and then hopped up on stage and tried to grab the microphone. That's awkward. That is awkward as hell. It has happened to me. And sometimes you have to roll with it. You've got to make sure that your individual that you're trusting the microphone with, your whole event's success, that they're competent and they're experienced and they can pivot, they can, kind of turn that situation around and make sure that it doesn't take over. Sometimes lesser skilled MCs and hosts and people that think they're auctioneers, they don't know how to do this. They don't, or maybe they'll, feel offended and then they'll start attacking the person verbally, make them look dumb, and we don't want to do that because all of a sudden now you have someone on stage that's chastising that individual that, they got a little carried away. It's not their fault. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. It doesn't matter. But being able to massage that situation and help to control the situation and really kind of, escort those individuals aside, or even, like you said, putting them in the spotlight and then, asking that individual, it's like, yeah, I can tell that you're very passionate about this organization. And I can tell that you want to share your story. Tell me, what your favorite thing about this organization is. And many times they're like, oh, I love it because they're doing this or they're doing this, or we need to stop this and we need to do, and and whatnot. And then this becomes a chance for that individual to be an ambassador, to be a hero. And then you can be like, oh, give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much. And then, continue to enjoy the night back at your seat. And then there they are. You get what they wanted, you get what you wanted, and then it helps to keep that that movement going. So yes, the drunk individual that happens. Another way to do that is not have an open bar. I mean, you know what? Out here on the East Coast of New York, it's a common thing. And I don't know if it's us East Coasters that know how to behave with an open bar, or if those on our West Coast friends that do have a cash bar, if they were to open it, and people take advantage of that. It's some cultural things. So kind of thinking about that. And I get it all the time that from organizations are like, oh, we got to get them lit. We got to get them drunk. No, we don't. I mean, we host a lot of dry events that don't have a drop of alcohol at them, and they're very successful. There's this thing called the, get ready for a big word, the diaphoretic curve. We'll do a whole blog or video on this, but it's like the optimum amount of alcohol that an individual can have to be beneficial, for someone to be generous, to be joyous, to be, in that moment, and then to where it's not detracting from their attention, detracting from their experience within that. Because once you get to, I think it's like 1.7, 1.8 drinks, then the curve starts to go down. And now, instead of the individual being a part of this community, being a part of something bigger than them and feeling joyous and spirited and whatnot, now all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm going to have a good time regardless. I'm going to drink as much as I want. And then it just goes negative. We don't want to do that. So again, looking at that and then timing your fundraising to where you're at that 1.8 drinks and do the fundraising there. Fundraise first, party later. That's one of our battle cries. So there's a lot of things that can happen in a gala that are nightmares, and that's just a few of those that we've had. I do want to talk to Jacqueline real quick. A purse catch on fire because of the tea lights. Dusty, fire time. What happens? What do we do?
Well, obviously mitigate the situation get the emergency out of the room, right? It's the emergency, that's the have everybody remain calm, that whole bit, but also don't have fire in the room.
I mean, with as many LEDs that are out there these days, you don't really necessarily need to have real fire anymore.
They make them really cool now.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And I mean, there's even like cold spark machines, which I love to have this. Ooh, how do you handle intoxicated supervisors? Anna, thank you for that question. So I'm going to guess when you're talking about intoxicated supervisors, individuals that might be in charge of a section of the event, someone that's in charge of the silent auction, someone that might be in charge of the stage, someone that be in charge of the whole event. I would say the way that or intoxicated board members, Paula, great suggestion there. Same thing goes with this, is to really, you got to get that team focused on what this event is all about. This event is, number one, yes, we want to raise as much money. Number two, we want to create a great experience so that, number three, you set up yourself for development and stewardship opportunities beyond the event. Like, look, leadership, stakeholders, volunteer leaders, we're here for a reason. And the reason is to help us fulfill our mission. And the way that you can help us with this is be focused, be in the moment. You're on the clock. And when you're on the clock, do we have a drink? No, 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 no. Our auctioneers and our fundraising ambassadors that are out there, we don't touch a drop. We are on the clock, and sometimes you have the drunk auctioneer, blah 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 blah. All that happens. So making sure that everybody is on the same page. This past year, I've had some great success by being able to coach the different boards that we've been able to work with, and do a what I call it's a board engagement coaching session. And within that, we talk about things that the board can do before the event, during the event, and then after event without writing a check. Well, board members love that. They're like, I don't have to write a check. Great. Okay. I'm in. What can I do? And at the event, what they can do is be in that moment, be in control, be an adult, but most importantly, be an ambassador for your organization and really come in with that host mentality. Now, when you go to a big party, if the host is hammered, you're like, I'm getting out of here. This is not fun anymore. And you don't want your hosts to be like that. So as a host yourself, and then understanding what our mission is for the event, but then also our mission as a nonprofit organization, what is that? And getting everybody on board and focusing on that, that is your planning. There is something that I learned back in the day, the 6 Ps. Have you heard the 6 Ps, Dusty?
Refresh my memory, Bobby.
Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yes.
Say that 5 times. Anyways, it is again that planning. Now, if you're in the event and you have the intoxicated board member, rewind this tape. Let's get him out of the room. Let's get another board member that's a little bit more responsible. Arm around that friend. I know you're passionate. All of this stuff. And let's exit them from the situation that's there. If you do have that supervisor, someone that is a little bit woohoo, you got to have someone to be the adult in the situation, or someone to be the big brother, big sister, to be able to pull them aside and be like, look, it looks like you've had too much. We're gonna have to kind of have you step back a little bit, because we, again, remember why we're here. We're asking, why are we here? And then that individual might have a couple drinks and have had that and then be like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. That's what we're here to do. And then have that, very just honest conversation. I mean, we're not blaming them. We're not judging them. We're not anything. We're just refocusing on, the why we're here is really, the big piece of that. And ultimately, you look at all of the nightmares that we talked about, it comes back to that. What's the mission of the fundraiser? What's the mission of the organization? And then how can we keep everybody focused on that? And I think a lot of nightmares that we have in our lives are those anxieties that keep us up at night and things that we don't have control over. So we can control the things we can control. And when you do that, your anxiety level and your stress level is going to be able to go down. And sometimes by working with a professional consultant, coach, someone that can help you to see these things that are about to happen or that could happen, and these disasters that could happen, you'll set yourself up for success, and you'll have a much better experience for you, your planning team, your event gala team, and making sure that everybody's on point. Remember the 6 Ps, and you want to stay prepared on that and do the things that you best can be prepared for. So I want to ask one more chance for if there's any questions that are out there, because we're here to serve you. We want to answer your questions. Thank you so much for investing time within us. Again, you're investing your most valuable asset, which is your time and your attention and wanting to learn more. So again, we're here to help you. We want to help you to have the best gala as possible. And if we could ever help you beyond that, please, we're going to send you an email. You can schedule a time with us. And again, we're here to help you. And a lot of times we just have conversations with individuals. Maybe we get to work with them. Maybe we don't get to work with them. But it's just having those conversations. And sometimes even just answering a question. We're more than happy to do that at any time, whether it's Dusty, myself, Frankie, Ryan, Janelle, whoever it is, we're there to help. And, yeah, this is a business, but it's not, we're not in business to make money. We have to make the money to feed the family. But at the other side of that, we're in this business to help fund your mission. We're help there to fundraise for your benefit and to be able to help you with that and to hopefully turn these nightmares into dream events. Dusty, can you think of any other nightmares that are out there that we've might have experienced that I might have forgot? Wait, hold on. You're muted.
Sorry, I did mute myself on that one. There was some action going on in here, and I was like, oh no. So I would say boring speakers. Yeah, that's a big one.
Ooh, how do you limit the boring speakers? I was to say, don't have BS fundraising program. No boring speakers. And again, like we'll go back to the prior proper planning can prevent boring speakers. And everyone that is at the microphone, we don't want a speech. We don't need a 3-page speech. We don't want a 5-page speech. It's to share the goal of this event with those honorees or those individuals. It's like, look, we're here to focus on the mission and raise as much money as we can. And thank you so much for being a part of this. And one thing that we've noticed is that less is more. Share your passion, about the organization. Share your passion about this mission and why you're giving and how grateful you are to be an honoree of this, or your executive director, or the mayor, or a sponsor, or what. It's just, hey, we're in this together, and we want to be able to make sure that this thing isn't boring. And many times, if they're professionals, they understand that. They've been to events. They're like, oh, I don't want to be that person. Yes. And kind of going back to the drunk individual in the room, it's having that person on the stage that can not embarrass the person that's behind the microphone that is kind of going on and on and on and on and on, to be able to approach that person, thank them, honor them, celebrate them, be very, very gracious. Thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Smith so much for, being generous here this evening. Let's give them a big round of applause. And then they kind of wrap up. So you got to have somebody that could do that if that happens. And that, again, someone that's experienced, someone that's knowledgeable in these different nightmares that really can happen there. And they do. It's like, it happens. And you know what? Sometimes you got to roll with it. And with those boring speeches, sometimes there is chances to pull from those boring speeches and then turn it around. And again, that's that individual that's on stage, your auctioneer, your fundraiser, that can really re-energize the audience and bring them back. So I can't be a bigger proponent to hiring professionals, whether it's us or anybody in the market. If you need a referral to anyone in your marketplace that we know and we trust, that speak the same language that we do, please reach out. We're more than happy to make that introduction and share that with that experienced professional fundraiser, that professional auctioneer, to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success and not having to wake up from the nightmare the next day and be like, oh, did that really happen? Oh no. And you know what? Sometimes it happens, but you know what? If you can set yourselves up for success, because again, say it with me: prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. 7 piece. With that, so Dusty, any last words that we want to share with our friends?
Oh boy, I think you nail it with the prior proper planning, right? I mean, that is a huge part, and not everything is going to go as you planned. So the pivot points, where can you pivot? Where can you make up from, whatever situation just happened, and really working with somebody that knows how to do that, will work with you on doing that, and ultimately do it in a way that is going to be the best for your organization, the best for your event, and then it's just great. And then if it doesn't, go as great, then there's always future events, and there's always future things, and we learn and we grow, and we get to do things, and yeah, I would say that that planning is the number one, though. You're
Number one, yeah. And I like what you said about those mistakes and learning from that. We're trying to teach our 9-year-old that everything in this world that has ever been created came from a mistake. Or lots of mistakes. and a lot of things that we use for best practices is from our own experience and from seeing those and be like, okay, we ain't doing that again. We're going to fix it this way. So yes, there's always going to be another opportunity. If a record scratch happens, that nightmare happens at your event, do the best job you can, be confident with the decision that you made, and then you can, have to deal with it later. And it happens. I've got a saying that all galas and all events, it's kind of like jazz. Everybody here, jazz hands. It's a jazz performance, and if you look at jazz, like there's a beginning and there's an end, and whatever happens in between is whatever happens in between. And we all have to understand that that's what live events happen, and even virtual events, even like this. You have to just go with the flow. You got to follow it. You got to follow the lead. You got to pick up where you can and do what you can to make that as best of a situation as possible. So Dusty, thank you again for joining me live from Scottsdale, Arizona.
Thank you.
Now, Dusty, we've got something coming up in Scottsdale. What do we have?
Yes, we do. We have a lunch and learn on the 18th at about 11:30 a.m. And that's going to be right here in Scottsdale. And we'd love to have you join us.
Yes. And we'll be sending you some information about that, a link to register. Come out, we'll buy you lunch, and we're going to talk about the being thankful and how being thankful after your gala, during your gala, before your gala can then help you to raise more money, because November is the month of Thanksgiving, right? So, we're always trying to put on some thematic things. And then coming up in December, we'll have another webinar talking about ways that we can gift our donors to encourage them to be generous and to gift us back. So Dusty Klink, thank you so much for joining us from Scottsdale. I want to thank all of our attendees for coming out and joining us. Again, my name is Bobby D with Call to Auction. And remember that auction is action with you in it. So go out, take some action, make a great auction, make a great event, and go out, go change the world. That's what it's all about. All right. Thanks, everyone, so much for coming. We'll send you this recording. So if you want to share that with anybody, we'll see you next time. Follow us online at Call to Auction, calltoauction.com, and we'll see y'all soon. Thanks, everyone.